I'm an openly gay man from Slovakia. We are not doing very well. We are the first country that experienced terrorist attack against LGBTQ community. According to the Fundamental Rights Agency, 77% of gay people are afraid to hold hands in Slovakia, and only 1/4 of people is out or partially out. So essentially everyone is closeted. And on top of that, our politicians are introducing new principles into our constitution that are further limiting our rights. If you want to know why is this happening and what is actually happening, listen up. So before we get to the content itself, I'm making this channel to spread the enlightenment about the leadership and LGBTQ topics. Every follow and every like helps, and I would really appreciate it if you would help me out. Now to the topics. So I would first explain what is happening in the recent years, and especially recently, and then I will go into why is this happening. So first of all, what is happening? And I already kind of foreshadowed it with these constitutional changes. So recently we had a law that passed, fairly surprisingly, that establishes in the Constitution, I don't know why it's in the Constitution, but it is in the Constitution, that there are only two genders, male and female essentially, which further obviously complicates the life of transgender people, not to mention intersex people, and it also complicates adoption significantly because it's kind of like it's connected to different laws, and it fortifies this idea that family has to be male and a female. So it actually essentially like pushes on like marriages and even registered partnerships far away, right? Because it's a constitutional law and the quorum is very high in Slovakia, so it's really difficult to change it. So essentially, by passing this, which was honestly relatively surprising that it passed, actually like the opposition provided 2 votes for this, which like, I don't know if there were both or what happened there, but it was definitely surprising for everyone. Fortifies significantly the state of essentially having no equal rights in Slovakia, right? Like in Slovakia, I cannot register, I cannot marry, I cannot adopt. There is an anti-discrimination law, but it doesn't essentially do anything. So this is what happened recently, this kind of fortification and like very conservative definition of genders in the constitution. What is worse is that right now we have a law that is being debated in the parliament, but I do have enough votes to pass this. And that's a law about marriage and transgender people. And essentially, what would happen is that if you are married and then one of you decides to go through a transition, state would automatically annul your marriage, regardless of you agree or not. They just like say, no, not married anymore. And the way how they do it is by pronouncing you dead. And now, first of all, it seems really brutal to have this like incredible intervention into somebody's marital status by just annulling it because you decide to change gender. And by the way, it applies even if you live abroad. So like there is literally no escape. Like if you're a Slovak person, that's it for you. You will live in Slovakia. And they do it in this like, they're proposed to do in this really brutal way that they essentially said, okay, this person is dead for us. Which is not ideal. I really don't know if it's going to pass or not. But I think it's a really good example to show how strong the culture was became in Eastern Europe, right? Because, and I'm curious to hear stories from other countries where there is like a similar experience. But essentially, in Slovakia, the number of people that are married and will transition successfully and then live in Slovakia, it's going to be minimal. Like, I'm sorry for those people. Obviously, they shouldn't go through this if this like law passes. But the effect is very few people, right? But the political discussion is humongous. So it's just a pure culture war, cheap conservative votes winning strategy, which I consider horrible, and more about that in the why section. And then the first thing, there was recently, one of the reasons why I'm making this video, there was a third anniversary commemoration of shooting in Tepláreň, which was a coffee place where 3 years ago a very radicalized young man, it was 18, right? A kid essentially came with a gun, shoot 2 people dead, and the third person was shot but she survived. And I knew the place. I used to hang out there. My mom used to hang out there. It was very like heartbreaking. And then, like in a normal country, in a normal society, this would be a wake-up call of, yo, we are not doing well. We are not protecting this community. They are being literally shot on the streets of a capital in the center during the White Day. But instead of that, there was like one protest where some politicians appeared. Some politicians had like very weird reactions. For instance, Prime Minister wrote on his Twitter or like whatever, Facebook, I'm not sure, I'm hetero and I'm proud of it. Meanwhile, the whole community like mourning the death of two young people. So there were very weird reactions. But the point is, the momentum was absolutely wasted. Literally no legislative changes happened. And I actually had a like very dark personal experience because I didn't make the first protest or the commemoration march or whatever it was because I was like I don't live in Bratislava, so and I couldn't travel because it was like the next day. But I made a second one, which was a few weeks later, and I was like mortified because essentially no one came. There were like 2,000 people in a like city that has what 500,000 inhabitants. Like mathematically, there's a lot more LGBTQ people and their families, but they just didn't care. And like I was very disappointed, like that not even the community itself is gonna fight for itself. That was like relatively dark, and I think it like shows part of the problem with the culture in Slovakia and why like we are not able to move with the human rights as fast as like would be like ideal or even acceptable, honestly, right? And another thing that it did, I feel like since the Teplane shooting, the controversy became large. Like you have these like reports of there was, for instance, fourth one, this Kolkovna case, where you had a couple like affluent guys, relatively right, like a normal, not normal guys. They went to Kolkovna into like a relatively luxurious part of the city for dinner. And there was nothing lavish. They just like exchanged the kiss because it was, I don't know, they were celebrating something, anniversary, whatnot. And then somebody from the next table, like a different guest, started to like scream at them that like they can't do that publicly. So then they like called the waiter to like help, like, yo, I'm being discriminated in an establishment, do something. And the waiter agreed with the attacker and they like tried to kick them out, which led to them calling the police. And the police finally like did the legal thing and essentially like said, okay, well, you cannot do this. But it is cases like these, and there is like dozens of these, that leads to people not wanting to hold hands and just not being comfortable living there. Like there's a lot of people like me who just like when I go home, which I don't do that much anymore, but when I go to Slovakia, I have this, okay, am I like passing, especially like certain places at night in the city, like am I passing a straight? I don't have this feeling in Berlin. I don't have this feeling in Prague. And I think the reason why I have this feeling is exactly that you constantly hear cases like this, that is not safe to be gay in Slovakia. Well, and it's unfortunate and it's getting worse. And I essentially feel like out of my gay friends, especially the successful ones, essentially everyone left apart for like a few people. But there's more exceptions, honestly. Like most people just relocated to Prague or even more west. And it's a shame because the country is losing a lot of talent. And I'm talking, entrepreneurs like me, like people who found companies, who pay high taxes, who are, contributing to the society by educating, the people who go and teach a subject on university because they know how to do these things, right? Like people who like start a company and then like pay millions in taxes. These people from the community are leaving because they can go wherever they want. And they don't want to live in a country that is attacking them on the legislation, where the culture is not accepting them, and where there are shootings that, don't even move the needle on the legislation changes. And now, why is this like recent escalation of the law happening? I think it's interesting, right? So Slovakia not doing well. Like economically, we are very bad. We are not in recession yet, but for like not very like developed country in the context of European Union, we should have like decent growth, right? Like Czech Republic has like 3%, Poland has like 4%. We are predicted to have 0.5 next year. So we are really not making it. And this is despite us like already like trying to fix this by consolidation, but we are still doing awfully. And the government currently have this in the media constantly, so they are doing this like fear mongering against the LGBTQ community, starting the culture wars. So the media and the public discourse is on something else, anything else essentially. Ideally, something that wins them like political points, which is conservative topics often do. But they are trying to do anything to cover discussion that would normally be about the economy, the healthcare falling apart, and things like that, right? And I think so. First of all, it's obviously unethical, like winning cheap political points at the expense of a marginalized community that's already not doing very well. I think it's awful, and I don't know how they like sleep at night. And there are these like, I quote, "If I see two guys making out, it's disgusting," right? Like you have one of the leading politicians saying this publicly. I recently made a reel about it. It got 200,000 views because it's super controversial, but it proves the point. That's the thing that people talk about instead of talking about boring economy and healthcare. Which brings me to my second point to why, like, obviously on a superficial level, it's okay, well, politicians are, like, doing this because, well, it wins them points and it covers the topics that they don't want the public to talk about. But the real problem is the people. The real problem is that it works, right? The real problem is that there is enough conservative voters to vote on these issues instead of economy that would be sustainable. The problem is that there is enough like people who would rather talk about culture wars and hurt the other side instead of trying to help the country to grow forward. And I honestly think that this problem, and I'm like saddened by it, also the reason why I don't want to live there, and I don't live there for quite a while, despite still having a strong connection, this is not going to be solved by the next election. Whoever we elect, fingers crossed somebody from Oxford as well, there's this like very strong candidate that I like, I think the culture will stay. And this is going to take very long to revert the changes, to educate the people, and to just show them, like, yo, I'm a normal guy. I have my job, I have my boyfriend, I'm the same as you are, only I like guys. So I'm actually curious because, like, I have very grim feeling about this, but maybe I'm just too pessimistic. So number one question, do you have the Slovak people, do they have the same feeling? Is it that bad? And second, people from other countries, do you feel similarly about the state of LGBTQ rights in your country, or are you more satisfied? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Love you.